Good and decent people of YouTube, Bruce Lively here. Welcome to Political Drain. This is a little different, looks a little different, but it's for a purpose. I was supposed to bring you my analysis of Pillar 4 of Project 2025 today at 6 o'clock. I can't do that because I'm having some technical difficulties. The program's not working. I've been trying to jerry-rig and put band-aids on it, and it's not going to happen. So what I wanted to do was give you a teaser. They want to create a fascist state. And if you don't believe me, I understand. It seems outlandish. So you can go through 1, 2, and 3 on your own. It's probably right down there. But because I'm here, I don't have the necessary equipment that I needed. I just want to give you a preview. There was a book called 1984. George Orwell. You may have heard of it. And in the book, it talks about a dystopian future where the government can tell everybody anything they want them to believe, and people have to literally forget what they know in order to believe it, or else. Of all the pillars I'm talking about, it's going to end up being the longest video because in order to understand how they plan on doing all of these Orwellian things and get rid of all the guardrails that we already have in a democracy, in this democracy, you kind of have to understand how 1984 works. Indoctrination. And then it goes further. It goes into things like maintaining enforcement measures beyond the regulated enforcement measures. Some would call them Brownshirts. You see, in Nazi Germany, they had the Brownshirts is what we call them. I forgot the actual name. It'll be inside the next video. But the idea is these were the same guys as the militias that we have today. You see, they were used to enforce the laws before you could make them laws. They were used to prop up the dictator, their leader, to make sure people didn't get out of line and conformed until it became something that was no longer necessary. And there's a way of doing this. Manipulation is one. Grooming is another. I want you to see this. And this is just an example. This probably won't even be in the video, but I just thought it pertinent that you see the type of things that's been going on and how far ahead these gross people are thinking.
So that'll be our launching point. Watch this cringe commercial.
Hello, I'm Pastor Mark Burns, founder of Burns Military Christian Academy. I'm so thrilled to announce the establishment of our new institution, a beacon of hope and opportunity for our children, designed to combat the growing influence of the woke agenda in American public schools. Our mission is clear: to provide an affordable, small classroom, pro-American education with a strong emphasis on biblical teachings. Our goal is to keep our rates extremely low so that almost anyone can afford to send their child to a safe, private Christian school. We are dedicated to instilling good morals and a love for our country in our students, while ensuring that they are not exposed to a woke teaching or sexual perverted lifestyle. We are committed to providing a safe and bully-free environment, as bullying, disrespectful behavior towards parents, teachers, faculties, and fellow students will not be tolerated. Join us in our mission to protect our students from harmful influences of the woke agenda and to raise them up in a nurturing, Christ-centered environment. Together we can make a difference to ensure a brighter future for our nation's children.
Now, check it out. Number one, the guy who's in charge, Mr. Burns there, lied about his military career, said he was in the reserves, he was not. Lied about graduating college. He started a military school, has not graduated college, and lied about his military background. If you don't see the problem there, just think about it. And you start to understand how truth no longer matters. How whatever happened in the past is brushed over willfully, willingly. And then there's another part of this.
All white kids. There wasn't a child of color or a parent of color in the entire thing. So this school that has on their little emblem Proverbs 22:6. Pretty interesting. Because again, woke, is about anything they don't like, which usually is anything dealing with anything of equality or equity or diversity or inclusion, any of that. That's woke stuff. So it leads to a white school led by this black man carrying water for white supremacists. But it's interesting that scripture on the decal, on the patch, the Proverbs 22:6, which is that raise a child up in the way that he should go, and when he is old, he should not depart from that.
That is Proverbs 22, something like that. Check it out. I want you to understand something. When I see those kids in their military uniform getting told about only the things that you want them to know about and to discard everything else because everything else is bad and evil. You only know the knowledge that we tell you, despite what science says, despite what scholars say. The person who runs it hasn't graduated college. And he's running the education, so now education just means whatever I think it should. Discard whoever I think you should. And when you start it young enough, you grow the kid in a way so that when they grow up, they will not depart from it. In the book 1984, there's a description. There's a description of the making of what I would call the Brownshirts. They're called the Spies, or the League of Spies, or something like that. And the idea is the children wear these types of uniforms and they're indoctrinated from a young age to believe that whatever you're doing, whatever you're thinking, if it's not what they were told the day before, it's wrong. And they gain this type of pride because it's all a game when you're a kid that will not depart from them when they're old. I want you just to hear this passage from 1984 and see if you don't see the similarities. Winston, the protagonist of the story, goes into this other lady's house who has kids to help fix her pipe. And the description of these kids, and it gives you a great idea of how easy it is to turn people who know nothing into whatever you want them to be. And the uniforms and the playing at military and the hate, who to hate without question. It just gives, if it doesn't seem similar, if you don't see the similarities, I don't know what else to tell you. Just check this out.
There was a trampling of hoots and another blast on the comb as the children charged into the living room. Mrs. Parsons brought the spanner. Winston let out the water and disgustedly removed the clot of human hair that had blocked up the pipe. He cleansed his fingers as best he could in the cold water from the tap and went back into the other room. "Up with your hands!" yelled a savage voice. A handsome, tough-looking boy of 9 had popped up from behind the table and was menacing him with a toy automatic pistol, while his small sister, about 2 years younger, made the same gesture with a fragment of wood.
The other idea is this idea of mimicry. One is being taught while teaching the younger one as she mimics him.
Them were dressed in the blue shorts, grey shirts, and red neckerchiefs, which were the uniform of the spies.
This uniform.
Winston raised his hands above his head, but with an uneasy feeling, so vicious was the boy's demeanor, that it was not altogether a game.
Right.
"You're a traitor!" yelled the boy. "You're a thought criminal! You're a Eurasian spy! I'll shoot you! I'll vaporize you! I'll send you to the salt mines!" Suddenly they were both leaping around him, shouting, "Traitor!" and "Thought criminal!" the little girl imitating her brother in every movement. It was somehow slightly frightening, like the gambling of tiger cubs which will soon grow up into man-eaters. There was a sort of calculating ferocity in the boy's eye, a quite evident desire to hit or kick Winston, and a consciousness of being very nearly big enough to do so. It was a good job it was not a real pistol he was holding, Winston thought.
Uh-huh.
Mrs. Parsons' eyes flitted nervously from Winston to the children and back again. In the better light of the living room, he noticed with interest that there actually was dust in the crease of her face. "They do get so noisy," she said. "They're disappointed because they couldn't go to see the hanging. That's what it is. I'm too busy to take them, and Tom won't be back from work in time." "Why can't we go and see the hanging?" roared the boy in his huge voice. "Want to see the hanging! Want to see the hanging!" chanted the little girl, still capering round. Some Eurasian prisoners guilty of war crimes were to be hanged in the park that evening.
As the grooming begins young
once a month and
on
was a
Who to Hate.
spectacle. Children always clamoured to be taken to see it. He took his leave of Mrs. Parsons and made for the door.
On
but
what's
he had
important.
not gone 6 steps down the passage when something hit the back of his neck, an agonizingly painful blow. It was as though a red-hot wire had been jabbed into him. Mrs. Parsons dragging her son back into the doorway while the boy pocketed a catapult. "Goldstein!" bellowed the boy as the door closed on him. But what most struck Winston was the look of helpless fright on the woman's greyish face.
And this is where it gets diabolical. Understanding the psychology of the children, they say this in 1984.
Organizations as the spies, they were systematically turned into ungovernable little savages, and yet this produced in them no tendency whatever to rebel against the discipline of the party. On the contrary, they adored the party and everything connected with it. The songs, the processions, the banners,
The
hunting,
uniform,
drilling
the
of
hat.
enemy rifles, the yelling of slogans, the worship of Big Brother. It was all a sort of glorious game to them. All their ferocity was turned outwards against the enemies of the state, against foreigners, traitors, saboteurs, and thought criminals.
Against the queers, the LGBTQ, against the equity, against the woke. If you want to know how easy it is, or if you want to know how things could get so bad to where there's no more guardrails, understand that when you already have the militias enforcing, the parents rushing their kids in to become militia enforcers, the lack of education, the denial that you think you can learn something from somebody who's unlearned, when you can wear a shirt of somebody turning themselves in and surrendering, and that has a mugshot on it of them surrendering to the police, and under it say never surrender, and it doesn't irk you, and it doesn't make you say, I wonder what that means. You can also have generations of zombie soldiers that do whatever the leaders say. And as long as they have something to hate out there, they'll never think about what it is they're actually doing in here. We got to talk about Pillar 4. How they're going to do it. I just thought this was interesting. I'll see you on the next one.